Welcome back to another LinkedIn Live with myself and my co-founder, Josh Lambert from Well Workplaces. Josh, how you going?
Hello, Tom. Hello, everyone. I'm very well, thanks, mate. Yeah, going well. What are we? Lockdown 6.0 XL at this stage, so good fun.
Going a bit insane here today, mate. I was in the backyard with my wife just before this, kicking a football to myself and then hand passing to her on the run. And I thought, wow, I think I may have lost the play.
Kicking a foot. Have you taken a few grabs up here?
A few hangers in the backyard. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, how are you keeping your wits about you today?
Yeah, today's a bit more of a challenge. Got both the kids home today, but been lucky enough. We've still had a few patients sort of coming in over the last couple of days, so been able to get into work the last couple of days. But today we've got homeschooling and we've got flow home as well. So it's a bit of a juggle between us all, but it is what everyone's going through at the moment, isn't it? Really, you kind of pick your three most important things you need to get done for the day between yourselves, and then prioritize, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of like little sprints of work, isn't it? And I guess with Melbourne and Sydney, where we are also with the lockdowns, everyone's just trying to find their flow in their day and just doing their best work when they can. Otherwise, trying to enjoy the downtime if they can, and find ways to work on their well-being, or at least find some time for self-care. Josh, with employee well-being at the moment, obviously it's a bit tricky, and the reason for getting you on is to talk about employee well-being during lockdown. I know you're chatting with a lot of our clients, and really interested to hear what's happening with the clients that you're talking with.
Yeah, you're right, Tom. It's a tricky time. It's a good time for employee well-being in a sense that it's on the tip of everyone's tongue and it's spoken about in board meetings and those sorts of things. But it's a tricky time because, as you say, I mean, it's not just Victoria. I mean, New South Wales is in lockdown. There's also, as of yesterday, New Zealand are in lockdown as well across the whole country. So there's lots of our clients having all sorts of challenges with, I guess the general consensus or the general feel from our clients is that and by the way, this is anyone that's in HR or in health and wellbeing or health and safety, or anyone that's been really in charge of employee wellbeing, they kind of feel like they're performing 3 or 4 roles at the moment. And because if you think about it, they're kind of doing the reactive COVID stuff, which we all have to do, which is, are we going into work? Are we working from home? Are we, do we have our COVID protocol in place, etc.? So there's that. That's sort of role number one. There's COVID-based wellbeing, I guess, promotion, which includes the employee assistance program. There's mental health support, and by that token as well, they're getting a little bit fatigued with that because it's been going on for so long now. And then there's these more, they're the kind of reactive parts of their role, or the reactive roles. And then there's these two other, which is doing proactive stuff for the now and doing proactive stuff or planning for 2022. So a lot of the people I'm talking to, mate, are pretty fatigued because they are wearing many hats. They're trying to sort of fill holes at the moment, but have a lens on the future as well. So it's for obvious reasons, pretty tough time for lots of clients. So yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it decision fatigue and just general fatigue? But as you say, it's like the number one topic at the moment is, we know that mental health is a huge issue. We chatted with Dr. Natalie Flatt a couple of episodes ago about languishing and how that works. So kind of those, I like to think of workplaces as communities. So communities of people. And I guess like the role really of leaders or HR is to maintain connection throughout these turbulent times. And but in saying that, a lot of businesses, they've been trying to do that for 18 months and everyone's getting extremely fatigued. So I guess with that in mind, Joshy, what are people actually, I guess, what's working now? What are you finding, given that these people are quite, they've got their plate full with so many different things? What's working, or what are they really honing in on, say, for the next few months? Is there anything that you're finding as a common theme?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I guess before I answer that, I kind of go back a little while. And I think it was late last year, I wrote an ebook that was employee wellbeing, what now? And it was all on sort of this, obviously late March last year was the biggest change to the workplace that I know I've ever experienced. I think most of us that are in current times have ever experienced. And it was almost like this sort of chronological order process of change in health and wellbeing behaviours. So initially it was this, okay, we're now all working from home if it was a professional based organisation or many of our clients. So it was, how do we make our staff safe to be able to work from home and get that done, and obviously be COVID safe. Then it was sort of around this flu time where, flu vaccinations were massive last year because of COVID, but they're also very tricky to deliver. And then there was mental health, this huge big, okay, we've got to support people's mental health because of lockdown and isolation and all of the obvious challenges. And then it was kind of just that, as you said before, that fatigue, like Zoom fatigue, decision fatigue, isolation fatigue. So it kind of had that. That's just to give you a run up into what maybe we thought we were coming into in 2021. It was this sort of, these different mini eras that felt like months and months and months, and they were actually only really weeks, but that's how much it changed. So I guess that brings us up to 2021, and we had a bit of a good run at, what was it, sort of March, April, May this year in Australia. We had a pretty good run where a fair percentage of the population were going back to the workplace, at least periodically. We were catching up with people again. We weren't wearing masks outdoors, indoors, and it was all right. So I guess we're now at that point with, I think a couple of weeks ago, was it nearly 50% of the Australian population in lockdown? It's now kind of back to that, all right, what do? We can't do too much. We can't plan too far ahead with any concrete sort of surety, but we still need to be doing wellbeing. But we've also got 20 months of historic, hey, look after yourself, be good with your mental wellbeing, and there's a little bit of fatigue with that, as you say. So what are we doing right now? Well, people are a little bit bored of just, off the shelf type initiatives now, or spruiking the employee assistance program. So it's things like challenges are huge right now. Again, if you think about the population, if a lot of us are at home, working from home, you might be single working from home and not really interacting with too many people in the community at all, you're craving sort of interaction. So challenges are a really good way. And I'm talking step challenges. There's sleep challenges, there's financial wellbeing challenges. Those sorts of things are great ways to, and a lot of our clients are taking those up because they've done the workshop thing, or they've done the webinar thing a little bit. So it's just a nice, more gamified, interactive way of doing something, but not having to plan too far ahead. The other ones are classes are making a bit of a resurgence, and I don't mean that they ever sort of classes, and by that I mean exercise classes. They didn't really sort of go quiet, but because we had that period of time where we could go to gyms or we could go and exercise in groups outside, they did get a little bit quieter, I guess. But now we're doing virtual yoga classes together as a team. Desk stretching is massive again because we're sitting at our desk working from home quite a lot. Those sorts of classes, that our clients love them because they're quite low cost and they're quite easy to implement. So yeah, they're kind of some of the I don't like to call it low hanging fruit, but they're some of the easier to run initiatives that clients are doing now, whilst they wear those 4 hats that I spoke about and try and plan something for the future as well.
Yeah, good summary, mate. I guess with those things as well, like the challenges, the classes, basically what we're targeting there is, besides the initiative, is actually trying to bring the team together and connect in some way. So, challenges are great because of the social connection. Obviously, we can get a little bit competitive, as we have in our own challenges at Pinnacle, but that's part of the fun. And I guess, like, I've been talking a lot about trying to find ways to, I guess, find some fun in the week lately, like my kicking the footy to my wife earlier, just to sort of change things up. Because without that, what are we really doing? We're sitting at our workstation at home, and we are, working through the day, but really probably not as productive or as engaged as we were going back, a year and a half ago. I think the other things as well that are important, just to jump in here, is, I guess, from a basic understanding of if you're an employer or in HR, having contact with your employees so that everything's really clear as to what the expectations are right now. I think sometimes the burnout factor comes in when the business changes and therefore the role changes, and then if it's not clear how those changes have then affected the different roles, then that leads to, I guess, lack of engagement and, I guess, fear as well, fear of the change and the unknown. And I think many workplaces have changed in the way that they operate, and maybe that sort of basic, going back to that basics of one-on-one understanding what the expectations are. I think that's a low-cost wellbeing initiative that doesn't actually require anything except for the leader to stand up and take some initiative.
And I think on that, Tom, sorry to cut in, but it's almost like all the stuff that I spoke about there and all these initiatives and engagements, they will be seen as tick the box type activities or not authentic or a bit tokenistic unless there's that pre-existing platform of all the things that you spoke about, which is reaching out, having good one-on-one relationships with employees. Because if you don't have that, it's kind of like the context or the I guess the background of why these different initiatives are happening in the first place isn't there, and people are like, I'm a bit bored of webinars, or I'm a bit bored of this stuff now. So you're right. I mean, it's, you can have all this great stuff, but the basics stay the same. It's just that it's even more important now because we don't get that, I guess, that opportunity to do it in a more organic or off the cuff way, because we're not working within the same four walls as our staff, are we?
Yeah, that's it. If we so I guess what we've spoken about so far is some of the reactive things, or some of those reactive stances that organisations are naturally taking. It's hard to think a few months ahead, but I'm interested in understanding from you, with some of the clients you've chatted with, as people look ahead to, say, next year, what are they really thinking about now, or what's sort of the common things people are talking about to set up a bit more structure in what they're doing going forward? Because let's face it, employee wellbeing is going to be important beyond COVID, or did you call it BC or AC after COVID?
BC, isn't it? Well, yeah. BC, what are we, AC at the moment, but we're still sort of within C, aren't we? So yeah, I mean, I guess it's funny, isn't it? Before I get into that, it's like maybe in late 2020, we're all thought, okay, 2021 is the year we're going to be sort of out of this COVID thing, but really that's more looking like 2022 and even might be mid or late 2022, isn't it? Now we're in the middle of these sort of snap lockdowns. But it's a really good question you ask. And to come back to sort of what I was saying before, you've got, these stakeholders, and I'll refer to them all as sort of chief wellbeing officers. I know it's a term you and I have been using quite a bit lately, and there is the rise of sort of the chief wellbeing officer, or CWO, in workplaces, but we like to call really any stakeholder who's in charge of the wellbeing program, or who really takes the lead with setting up wellbeing initiatives, as the chief wellbeing officer, whether that's their title or whether it's one of many hats they wear. And I guess the first thing to say before explaining how these organizations are starting their planning is that actually, identifying that their role is really important, and the awareness and the I wouldn't say pressure on the role, but there's certainly a lot, heightened visibility and heightened support in that role. So it does mean that some of these chief wellbeing officers, whether they want to be called that or not, are probably feeling like they're under the microscope a bit, because they've got to be giving that reactive support, planning, and be seen to have stuff, mapped out for the future. So that's maybe why, this is me thinking out loud here a bit more as well, but that's maybe why they're feeling the pinch a bit more, because we're now nearly September 2021, 20 months of COVID fatigue, but also, hey, Josh, what's happening with our wellbeing program next year? Because that was on you, mate. So there's it's a pretty intense time for them. So I haven't answered your question yet, by the way, but that's just to give it a background. I guess what they are doing now, because of that visibility and because of the support they're getting in that, is that they are looking to structure it a bit more. We have our scorecard, as you obviously know, Tom, the SPACE framework, which goes through the 5 different aspects of a wellbeing program. And the first one we look at is structure. So the S in SPACE is structure. And a lot of our clients in the past have been reactive, not due to COVID. This is pre-COVID times, but wellbeing programs have been made up of kind of this, interaction of various different initiatives. Some of them, oh, quick, we should do this, or it's Are You OK Day coming up, so should we get a speaker, or it's biggest morning tea, or whatever it might be. The wellbeing program's not that well planned out or structured. It's very much doing things as they crop up or as they feel right, which there still should be an element of that. But what we're finding at the moment is if there's no structure moving forward, or it's not even referred to as a program, the wellbeing program, it's quite hard to appeal to employees of all demographics and all backgrounds, and it's also very hard to refer to it. There's that classic. I tell this story to a lot of clients, but there's a lot of our surveys that go out to the employees at the companies we work with, and the question asks, what did you like most about your employee wellbeing program in 2021? And the employees say, well, we didn't have an employee wellbeing program. Even though they had flu vaccinations, they had health checks, they had skin checks, and they had a few workshops, it wasn't referred to as a program, it wasn't mapped out as such, and therefore it didn't come across as a program. So I know that sounds like a really obvious thing to say, but the structure moving forward is kind of, to come back to your question, a lot of our kind of clients we're working with are starting right now and going, all right, we need to have a bit more structure around what we're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to be exhausted come March, April next year, because we've been doing this for 20 months now. We need to start giving ourselves a bit of a run up and a bit of a plan. So that's probably the major, I guess, if we're looking at strategically, what are our clients doing right now? They're in planning mode. Those that are lucky enough to maybe already have their plan are in the next stage from that, which is sort of putting the meat on the bones. So they're working out, all right, we know roughly what we want to do in that 12-month period, but we need to start thinking about the campaigns that are going to run in that time, the different wellbeing topics that we're going to include. And even, I know it sounds quite early, but even sort of locking in things like speakers or different facilitators for events that can be quite in demand. So that's just to give you an idea. I've jumped around a little bit there, but that's to give you an idea of that next phase, I guess, for clients.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess what we've seen through the space framework as well, and our scorecard is that, what we're seeing now through our data is that the most, I guess the biggest gap is the structure, which is that starting point, and probably followed second by awareness. So it's not only good to have a plan and a strategy and structure, but then giving it then using messaging and using all the channels that are available in a business to communicate that to employees. Obviously, that brings it all together and communicates it effectively. Which, it's always a hard one because there's multiple channels, there's lots of employees. But if you can bring it all into one program or one system, it's no different really to, I guess, I kind of like to give the analogy of it's like setting up a business strategy and then executing it, and the employees are kind of like your employees for your business. You need to communicate with where you're going with your plan and how it's going to work and what are the results as well.
It's a good point, Tom, and it's like I don't mean to speak positively of COVID, but I mean, one of the upsides to it all is, we spoke about it before, is that increased awareness. It's like it's like almost, if you don't talk about wellbeing in board meetings, or it's not sort of pretty high up on the agenda, that you really seem to be missing what the last 18, 20 months has taught us. So in a lot of ways, that's helped, chief wellbeing officers or these stakeholders, because they've already got that instant support, whether it's purely authentic at the moment, or whether, some workplaces feel like they have to be seen to be really, pro wellbeing. But it's going to play into the hands of that awareness, as you say, because I mean, if you've got executive level buy-in or leadership buy-in, it means the awareness has already increased, because they're going to be championing it, and they're going to be, if they're not hearing about it, they're going to say, well, what's going on here? Where's our wellbeing support? So I mean, it, again, without being too overly positive about all the challenges that we've all faced, there are a lot of positives to come out of heightened awareness of wellbeing. So it all bodes pretty well for, I guess, 2022. I guess, you and I are predicting it to be the year of the Chief Wellbeing Officer, but also the year that wellbeing really dictates performance a bit more, and also dictates where talent goes. So if you're on the job market at the moment, are you going to look at organisations that have a big focus on wellbeing versus those that don't? Because it's been such a challenge to our wellbeing lately. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, really good point about the talent attraction, retention piece as well there, Josh. One last one for you, mate. With your clients or the examples that you've had over the last, say, 5 years of consulting, what's like the best? Have you got an example of, say, the best leader, like a great example of a leader really doing their thing in wellbeing and really seeing that engagement? Got any stories to share there?
Yeah, look, there's a few, and I probably won't do them all justice, as in I'll probably leave some good ones out. But I mean, probably the best in class, and I know I've been on the podcast with Mel Hosey, who's actually the lead at EY Oceania Wellbeing, but why they're fantastic, and this is me just picking out sort of why their approach as a leader is fantastic, is that, and in fairness, Mel's got some support. She's got a team around her that sort of work on that strategy, and she's had Bridget there before her sort of setting up the process as well. But why it's the best is because it is so structured, and why as a leader, I guess, is Mel sort of one that comes straight to mind. It's because she's got a team around her and she's built wellbeing champions. So I'm saying that in the way that it's not so much, rarely does a wellbeing program work if it's left to that chief wellbeing officer to be the one promoting it and doing it. It really needs a team. So I guess the most successful examples of wellbeing programs have been one where it's not a leader, it's a team, and they have wellbeing champions in various business units and different offices as well, sort of really leading that. That's an example of like a large organisation. There's also an example of schools we work with, and there's a school we work with at the moment, Wyndham, and I love it that they're about 150 staff. So they're obviously mainly teachers and office managers and that's there's a school counsellor and that sort of stuff. But 150 staff, the principal's basically the chief wellbeing officer, Leanne, and she kind of she's the one introducing the topic. She's the one on the microphone before the launch of the program, and I love that because it's a school, so it's quite I don't know what's the word. It's very sort of approachable, and the interactions we've had with them are very not very corporate-y, which I like, and that's no criticism to corporates. But also the fact that the CWO is also the principal, is also the leader. It's just a nice sort of humble way to see it all happening and see the engagement that way. So yeah, they're probably two examples. One from obviously a massive company, and another from a school, and both have their advantages, that's for sure.
Yeah, love it, mate. And that's, two awesome examples there. We might finish there, Josh, but if anyone's listening or watching this actually live, feel free to send us any messages via LinkedIn if you like, for any questions, and we can answer those for you. And we'll share also a link through to our wellbeing scorecard as well for anyone that wants to explore that. But thanks again, Josh. It's nice to interview you finally on this, mate.
Yeah, good work, Tom. This has been great. This has been regular viewing for me, so you're doing a great job. Loving it.
Thanks, mate. All right, catch you later.
Bye for now.